Welcome back to the Go podcast, man. Episode 80, NFL offseason getting real busy. NBA regular season continues, man. We're sitting here March 5th. We're just talking about it. March 13th starts the new year in the NFL. A lot of moves going around the league. Got a couple hot or not for you. We're going to talk some of the transactions or lack of transactions that have been going on around the league as well. And then we're going to talk a little bit of hoops, a little bit of news that's been going on in the NBA. So I got two hot or not for you to kick off this week. Both of these NFL. Starting it off, hot or not, it's rebuild time in New York for the Giants.
That's not a hot take. I think, well, for the Giants, you got to think about, their division when you look at the NFC East. Cowboys and Eagles, two teams that are going to be on top of the NFC for the foreseeable future, two really solid teams. And then the Commanders bringing in new ownership, looking to revamp, hopefully drafting their quarterback of the future. So if they get that, the Commanders will be a lot better than they were last year. So that kind of leaves the Giants as the odd team out. And when you look at New York, apparently letting Saquon hit free agency, saw a report saying, there's a little buyer's remorse with the Daniel Jones deal. What is your actual ceiling with Daniel Jones? You have the sixth pick in the draft. They can go many different ways. Maybe bring in top-end talent, look at receiver, maybe offensive line, defensive line, but you could also draft a quarterback. It's a really good quarterback draft, so maybe you trade up a little bit, use some of your assets, and then you bring in a quarterback, have him sit a year. Although it's going to be behind Daniel Jones, you have Brian Dable there, so they'll at least be able to, get acclimated to the NFL life, NFL game speed, maybe like I don't want to say a Jordan Love or Patrick Mahomes because those guys sat behind, one Aaron Rodgers, who's one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time, and Alex Smith. When he was playing, he was a serviceable starter. He was a good starting quarterback. So I would say both of those guys are better than Daniel Jones. So maybe you don't get the total experience for that rookie quarterback, but it's time. Like it's been since Odell's rookie years, the Giants have been like true contenders. That was 2014, legit 10 years ago. So, yeah, I think it's time for the Giants to make a drastic move, maybe for the better or worse. But, yeah, they've been one of those teams kind of just stuck in limbo, mediocre, and now they're just trending towards bad. So, yeah, if I was running the Giants, I'd definitely look to make a big splash move, try to rebuild, and kick that franchise in the right direction. Because I like the coach. We like Daboll. We like what he did his first year with the Giants, what he was able to do with Josh Allen. A little disappointing last season, but they got some talent on that roster. Maybe build it up a little bit, but yeah, I think the first thing is you got to find your quarterback.
Yeah, and the draft month and a half away, sitting there, I think it's April 24th. You mentioned a lot of quarterbacks. O-line, you could go. They need help there, that's for sure. Quarterback obviously in question. Probably letting Xavier McKinney walk. Didn't tag him. Thought they were going to tag him, but so that's what's kind of pushing towards, maybe they're going for a new quarterback, and then the buyer's remorse was the report coming out of the combine from ownership and everything like that. So wouldn't be surprised. I've seen a lot of reports, man. J.J. McCarthy's stock going up. The Patriots or Jaden Daniels camp was talking about they might not want Jaden Daniels in New England being an LSU guy.
I think that just had more to do with the situation of New England, not right now, not really, being cold in the area or cold weather. Yeah, I think it's more of look at the past few years, look at the quarterbacks, look at how Mac Jones has so much trouble, Bailey Zappi. Jaden Daniels is a lot more talented than those guys, but what does he have to work with? So if I was a rookie quarterback, that would not be a situation that I don't want to go to.
I'd rather go to the Bears at that point.
Yeah, 100%.
At least you got DJ Moore to throw at.
Exactly.
And
then another top 10 pick to where maybe they bring in, a Roma Dunze, a Malik Neighbors, maybe one of those top receivers is there at 9. Brock Bowers, a elite tight end, a good receiving prospect. So, yeah, the Bears are definitely in a better situation it looks like. Then
receivers are deep in the draft too.
So you can second, third, fourth round, you can get a starting caliber receiver in this year's draft.
Yeah, I mean that's usually how it turns out. Anyways, you look at last year Quentin Johnston, first rounder. I think he was the only receiver taken in the first round, and you got guys like Puka.
No, he was just the first because I think Zay Flowers went first too.
Zay Flowers
and
did.
then I want to say it was one more.
It was 2 late round.
Maybe just Zay Flowers, but yeah. But he went first.
Yeah,
sure.
First receiver taken in the draft. Regardless, a lot of talent. We're going to cover the draft as well. I'm going to go with my second hot or not here. So hot or not, Calvin Ridley will walk in free agency.
That's not a hot take. I saw a report saying that that's what he's leaning towards. And, I mean, at this point, like Calvin Ridley, he had a solid bounce-back season with Jacksonville. Wasn't anything too exciting. I know he had a lot of hype coming in with the fantasy and the off-season training clips and him looking super explosive. But overall, I think he had a pretty average season on that Jags team that got banged up at the end. But, yeah, I mean, a receiver like him, you think about teams that are contending, I think he'd be a great fit. Obviously, Kansas City Chiefs, first team that comes to mind. When you see what Mahomes is able to do with, no legit number one receiver and a aging tight end, throwing Calvin Ridley, he's automatically, the best receiver on that team. You want to look at the Bills. Maybe they need some help, stretch the field a little bit. You have Stephon Diggs, Gabe Davis. He's up and down, so bring a little stability there. I think he should just
also
go to a contender.
Free agent too, so.
Yeah, I think Calvin Ridley would be a solid veteran addition to any contending team. So I think he eventually does hit free agency.
Probably going to be the top wide receiver in the market currently. And I'm looking right now. They give up a 5th and a 4th for Ridley. It could have become a 3rd, depending on certain incentives and stuff like that. But if they did extend him and sign him to another contract, they'd have to turn it into a 2nd-round pick. So maybe a little, to go with that as well, giving up a 2nd-round pick instead of a 3rd. Regardless, I kind of figured because he started off week 1 hot, then really had a cold stretch, sort of bounced back to the end. We know he can ball like he did in Atlanta, had that year off. But I think Calvin really, he needs kind of a fresh restart anyways. So I think that'd be good, for him in his career. But we're going to jump into, that's all my hot or not for this week. We're going to jump into some NFL news, man. A lot of franchise tagging going on today. We were talking about it. Some signings, rumors obviously going around. NFL Combine just happened as well. So a lot coming out, what teams want to do this offseason. A lot of smoke screens we're seeing, trying to decipher which is which, obviously. But I think the biggest news coming out the NFL, Russell Wilson. Where will he go this offseason? Some people were saying, should he just retire right here? Kind of picked it up towards the end of the season. Didn't do horribly. But the Broncos, they thought it was time to go. It wasn't Sean Payton's guy. It was Nathaniel Hackett that kind of got him in that trade. And right now they're calling it one of the worst deals in NFL history, if not, the worst. Your thoughts on the whole Russ situation? Where do you think he ends up going?
Yeah, I think next year the Denver Broncos are going to be paying him, like $36 million. And
dead cap,
yeah. He's not even going to be taking a single snap for them. So you definitely got to look at that and kind of go, shake your head a little bit. But, it's hard to say where do you think he goes. I think ultimately with all of these quarterbacks, Russell Wilson, he's out there getting a lot of hype. Justin Fields, the Bears most likely are pretty much going to end up trading him. Where does he go? I think all those dominoes will fall into place. Baker Mayfield, will he sign back with Tampa? I think the key here is Kirk Cousins. He's getting free agency. I think he's going to be, the prize of this quarterback free agency. Maybe now if he stays with Minnesota, gets his contract, then, maybe we see a little movement and guys start to look towards trading for Justin Fields or signing a Russell Wilson or looking into a Baker Mayfield. But, out of that group, Kirk Cousins is by far the best quarterback. Unfortunately, he went down with the Achilles, but apparently, I guess rehab's going really well. He should be ready to go for the beginning of the season. And if your team, like, Atlanta's getting a lot of buzz for all of these guys, like, if you have a Kirk Cousins, I think that's the perfect fit for what you want to run. Because if you bring in a Justin Fields, you bring in a Russell Wilson, these are guys that, Russell Wilson at this point of his career isn't as elusive, can't really create as much as he used to be able to outside of the pocket and extend plays. And then Justin Fields, we've never been able to see him, consistently perform from inside of the pocket. He, is more of the explosive athlete, big runs, highlight plays, not really as consistent. But you bring in Kirk Cousins with all those weapons around, we, make this comparison a lot. He's just like the point guard, be able to sit there, distribute, get all those big playmakers the ball that, we talked about Kyle Pitts, the Drake Londons, the Bijan Robinsons. Like, they have all these weapons, a solid on the line. Like, they just need the quarterback. We saw Desmond Ridder wasn't the answer. You bring in a guy like Kirk Cousins who, on the cerebral side of the game is going to be one of the best, able to make all the calls at the line. And then if he's upright, the Achilles injury, it's not like Aaron Rodgers who moves around, is able to extend. Kirk Cousins never really runs. So as long as he's out there and he can still throw and his arm is still as good as it's been, I think Kirk Cousins is definitely going to be the best fit in the quarterback I'd be looking into most. So depending on what he does, but you look at teams like Steelers, apparently they're sticking with their guy, Kenny Pickett. So they're not really looking into the free agent market. Then you start look at these other teams, like maybe you bring these guys in as like a bridge, or they come in to compete for a starting job. Then you get into the backup territory, but it's hard for me to see Russell Wilson being a backup at this point in time. Maybe Justin Fields in a new scenario, but yeah, it's tough. I think it's hard to tell where these guys will go right now until we see what happens with Kirk Cousins, because I think all these teams that are quarterback needy, I think Kirk Cousins is definitely going to be the first person they look at, the first person they try to talk to, the first person they try to get the medicals back on, because if he becomes available, he's clear and cut the best quarterback. So I think once we see what happens with him, then we'll see the rest fall into place. We can kind of get a guess and try to figure out where the rest of these guys go. But I think everything is pretty much just waiting on Kirk Cousins right now out there in Minnesota.
And the thing with Russ, I mean, you mentioned that guaranteed money coming out of Denver. I mean, another team, they scoop him up for real cheap.
Yeah, that is the bonus. You'll be able to get him on like a vet minimum.
Yeah, I mean, he'll take anything. You say, hey, Russ, you're a starter. This is your offense. Go ahead and lead it. I mean, he'll pretty much take it, good situations. So that is the plus. You get a veteran quarterback that has won a Super Bowl, maybe, fully hit the decline and regress, but if he's still got something left in that tank, you get him for that low. That's a Super Bowl, competitor like the Steelers, which I think honestly would probably be the better fit for him.
Mm-hmm.
You got that defense, you got the weapons around him. You got Najee, Deontay, he's kind of up in the air, but you got George Pickens on the outside. So you got the weapons on offense, and that defense to be elite. They've carried them and got them literally into the playoffs, which seems like every year, if not keeping Tomlin at 500, it's that defense.
Yeah, and I think Russ showed the ability that he's a capable starting quarterback. It's not like what he used to be at Seattle, running around and throwing those big deep balls, floating them over the middle and down the sideline and stuff. But last season, he was solid, wasn't horrible like he was the year before in Denver. And then he wasn't amazing. It just shows that he's going to have to go somewhere with good structure, a good coach, a good offensive mind like Sean Payton, who was able to, keep him in check. And I think what we saw Sean Payton get out of Russ last season was, kind of his ceiling at this point in time, coming off of the injuries, coming off of, aging and being a little older and not being able to move around and stuff like that. So if you put him on a contending team and Russ is able to bring you that, let's say maybe Kirk Cousins does decide to go to an Atlanta or whatever, and then Russ ends up in Minnesota with Kevin O'Connell, a great offensive mind, someone who knows how to run that system. Maybe we see, that same Russ we saw last year in structure, able to, work the offense to the best of his ability, even though that's not really what he does best. But like you mentioned, somebody that has experience, has seen a lot of NFL football, and if he's able to kind of, progress his game, being more into that pocket passer, not relying on his athleticism and running the offense, I think you can get a solid starting quarterback that should be able to hold you over for the next couple of years if you're someone like Minnesota, to give you time to help find, your quarterback of the future.
Speaking of quarterbacks, man, Mike Evans re-signs a 2-year deal to stay in Tampa. One of the factors in his re-signing of free agency was to compete for a championship with the quarterback that is capable. So with Baker Mayfield in the question, it's sort of like, is he your quarterback? Is he not? Super Bowl Baker Mayfield. It's had a really solid bounce back season last year for the Bucs. Surprised a lot of people. He was a first overall pick for a reason. He kind of proved, he's still always going to have that chip on his shoulder. But is he going to be the guy to lead this team to a Super Bowl, to be a Super Bowl contender? The Bucs try to go somewhere else, like the Kirk Cousins, as you mentioned, because it obviously be an upgrade from Baker Mayfield. You might as well say, some people say Baker Mayfield's the poor version of Kirk Cousins. Whatever it is, I just found it surprising because Mike Evans came out and said, or his camp did, that he wanted to, play for a championship, and obviously money was involved. I think he got like $30 million guaranteed or something like that, but good deal for Mike Evans. I know as one of the big free agents, wide receivers, and the Bucs got it done, giving him that contract extension. I just thought it was a little surprising that he resigned after they said Super Bowl contender.
Yeah, that was clearly just to put a little pressure on the Bucs and saying that if we don't get a deal done, then Mike Evans is gonna leave and he wants to compete. But ultimately, he wants to stay in Tampa. The money was right, like you said. So, I don't think the Bucs the Bucs are going to be competing for a Super Bowl anytime soon, but he just wanted the money to be right. So, a little business tactic, a little strong arming the Bucs right there. Nothing wrong with that. Mike Evans deserves it. Hell of a career.
Yeah,
he'll be a first ballot Hall of Famer, so yeah.
Tampa his whole career, man. And then you got you want to move out of Florida, go. I think Mike Evans at the point in his career where he's kind of want to see that Florida sunshine and just keep his sand.
He's got his ring, he won his Super Bowl. So at this point in his career, he's just, not really stat padding, but just trying to, make his career as good as he possibly can, continue that 1,000-yard receiving streak. I think, that's really all there is at this point. Like, with Baker Mayfield, he proved that he's able. Yeah, Baker proved that he's able to support his streak. So that's really at this point, that's really all that matters.
There's been a lot of quarterbacks that have proved that.
Exactly.
So,
yeah.
It doesn't take much, quarterback play for Mike Evans to do what he does. He's done it his whole career with nobodies and randoms and different quarterbacks every week. So nothing new there. Two big no tag, no signing deals. Obviously, Saquon Barkley coming out of New York, which kind of led to that rebuild talk. And then Christian Wilkins out of Miami, Xavier McKinney as well from New York. I'll touch on that there. Christian Wilkins, you kind of, I don't want to say, we talked about it, you got to pay Tua, a lot of cap space. Tyreek's the highest paid receiver in the NFL, a lot of things adding up when it comes to money-wise and who you're going to pay. But I just felt like Christian Wilkins actually proved himself in this Dolphins defense, being a captain, being a leader, being a force, and really altering that D-line as a one-man wrecking crew. I just thought, he deserved to get that re-signing. I know he probably wanted a bag, but there were some speculation that, C-Wilk might take something that might not blow up the market, a little friendlier deal, still be a lot of money, but regardless, couldn't get a deal done. They decided to not tag him, let him hit free agency. Serious hole in that Dolphins defense now. That D-line, they lose a key piece, especially in that 3-4. It really eats up the run. I just didn't like it. I know I'm not an NFL GM playing, NFL cap, but they did give some more cap this year. You could have went out and paid Christian Wilkins a couple $dollars or something. I just think it was a bad release. And then Saquon, obviously, I think they're going in that rebuild. You don't want to pay, a running back who's had some injuries, getting up there, and, you're not really contending for a championship at this point. You're looking for a new quarterback. So I think it was the right move on that Saquon part. Let him hit free agency, go to a contender, that could use a superstar running back. Because Saquon's clearly still capable of it, but his time in New York, I think it was long overdue. He stayed there a couple of years past what he probably should have.
Yeah, and you kind of think about like the Christian McCaffrey with him leaving the Panthers and then going to the Niners. So might be able to see something similar with the Saquon Barkley because I mean both of these guys left their teams and they weren't just getting into the NFL. These guys, have had a lot of success. Christian McCaffrey had the 1,000 season in Carolina, then gets traded to San Francisco. So I mean we've seen Saquon Barkley have a bunch of success in New York. Now, he's had the injuries, and McCaffrey had the injuries as well. So maybe we see Saquon in a, playing for a contender in a competitive environment, unlike New York. Maybe we see some big numbers like Christian McCaffrey. He kind of turns his career around, still be able to be super productive, still with being old for a running back. But, I mean, these guys, as long as they're able to stay healthy, supreme athletes, Saquon Barkley, he's, one of the best running backs in the league, fully healthy. So I think it would be cool to see him go to a contender. I saw Houston has some buzz. I mean, not biased, but a team like Philly, DeAndre Swift probably won't be coming back. But if he does go to Philly, it'll be like a 1-year rental because Eagles don't pay running backs. So maybe if he goes to a team like Ravens. I don't know, the Ravens, yeah, maybe the Bengals, Joe Mixon, he on the way out.
He's aging, yep.
Yeah, so I mean. Pretty much any contender, any team, any Chiefs, him and Pacheco, two-headed running back, like just give Mahomes a bunch more weapons. But regardless, I think you definitely want to see Saquon to go to a contender. I think the Ravens will be really fun. Him and Lamar in the same backfield will be pretty dangerous.
Something I personally would not want to see, but it is what it is. Franchise tags, I mean, there was a lot of tags going around the league today. Notable names, I mean, Antoine Winfield of the Bucks that we just talked about. L'Jarius Sneed gets that tag done over there in KC. Still trying to work out that Chris Jones deal. They're in talks. They're confident they might get a deal done. Bengals go ahead and tag T. Higgins, who was set to hit free agency, and it kind of looked like he was for a second. Colts, Michael Pittman, keeping a weapon for Anthony Richardson out there, big target. Been in the league for some years now. Got that veteran presence on the outside. Helped the young guys out as well. Brian Burns, he gets the tag. Sort of questionable at that point, but maybe hold on to him for a year. Maybe
especially
try to get
with,
a trade
I guess,
done.
The report saying that like they turned down like 2 first-round picks or a first and a second from the Rams to keep Brian Burns, and then you don't end up extending him long term. It's like, what's really going on?
Yeah, you're gonna sign him to a 1-year deal. Maybe hope next season you get a contract extension in, but I think if they don't get a deal done in the first place, maybe Brian Burns, does he really want to be there in Carolina? I wouldn't blame him if he didn't. So, any other names you want to talk about? You want to touch on any of these guys? I like the Sneed. He had a ball-out season. Keep him with McDuffie. Keep those 2 lockdown corners. I mean, they were essential in their Super Bowl run.
Yeah, I mean, guys like Jalen Johnson. I believe he got tagged there in Chicago as well, which, I mean, that makes sense. Chicago's, trying to trend in the upward direction. So if Caleb Williams is a hit, I mean, that'll be a big keep for them on the defensive side of the ball in terms of them trying to contend sooner rather than later. Antoine Winfield, I don't know if you talk about the Bucks. He's a really good safety. So, yeah, franchise tag's interesting. Makes free agency a little less fun. But from the business side, from these teams that, want to try to get something out of their players, not just let them walk for free, I understand.
Yeah, T. Higgins, I mean, you keep him paired up with Jamar Chase. Another season with the, Chase Burrow duo. And they still got Tyler Boyd out there, veteran wide receiver as well. They keep those 3 guys. They were essential in that Super Bowl run. Even Higgins, he was balling out in that Super Bowl that they lost. So keep a guy like him. He was slated to hit free agency. I know the Browns kind of had him on their radar for a little. It would have been crazy switch Cincinnati to Cleveland, but yeah, a lot of tags. Dolphins went ahead and released Jerome Baker. You know how to touch on that. Saved $10 million cap.
It's a good move.
I don't know, man. Our linebackers were weak end of the season. You know, we had some injuries. Regardless of the fact, Jerome Baker, he's your captain. He's your leader. You know, he's your green dot. Get rid of him. It's tough, man. You save $10 million cap, but what are you gonna do now? You lose Christian Wilkins also to free agency. Now you're missing two captains, part of that defense, and the first two levels of the ball. It's tough when you run a 3-4 defense. You need linebackers. Thought Jerome Baker was good, mixed with speed. He had a down season, probably his worst season yet. Maybe being the reason he was a fan favorite. He was always out there, you know, playing high motor. And that's kind of what you want from your captains, your leaders. You lead by example. He did just that. A little bit of a head scratcher. We'll see what they can get in free agency because they're going to need some help. I did see they signed a D tackle literally I think 10 minutes before this or something. Guy from the Ravens. I'm not sure, but I mean, that's something, you know, was tough to see, man.
Jerome Baker, the playmaker.
Yeah.
Your boy.
Definitely was, man. And then obviously touching on the Browns real quick, some smoke coming out of there in Cleveland Browns. If the Chargers don't get Mike Will on a deal, they might be looking at him and looking to add some help at receiver. Really wouldn't want to go Mike Will. Gabe Davis' name circled around. I like that. I mean, cheaper player than Mike Will. Big play, kind of like what Deshaun had in Houston with the deep ball connections he was getting going. You had a deep threat in Gabe Davis. Add some depth. You got Amari Cooper, who's the number one. You got Elijah Moore in the slot. You had Gabe Davis for that deep threat. They're really missing that take the top off the defense. That's why they got Marquise Goodwin last year. He really didn't get too many snaps. Don't really know if he's an answer at that point. It's reason he didn't get so many snaps. And then you got guys like David Bell who they're just not really deep threat targets in that Brown system. So guy like Gabe Davis, I like Curtis Samuel's name has been a part of this, and then Calvin Ridley as well. But I just don't think they'll have the cap to go out and get a guy like Calvin Ridley at this point, especially with their situation going on in cap. So it should be interesting for the Browns offseason. But yeah, I want to see them go get a receiver in this free agency. And then obviously, you know I want to go get my boy Gabe Davis, man. UCF legend. I'd rock with it. So I don't know if you got any more free agencies. I know you want to talk about your Eagles and your Kelsey, bro, but
I mean, for the Eagles, I mean, it's looking to be a typical Philadelphia Eagles offseason. You know, a lot of the key guys, you don't really bring them back. They don't bring back running backs. DeAndre Swift probably won't be brought back. Defensively, you know, especially the way the season kind of ended at the end, where there's a lot of finger pointing, a lot of lack of effort it seemed to be. So a lot of those guys, a lot of those veterans on one-year deals and stuff like that probably won't be back. I believe Kevin Byard was already released. That'll save some cap space. When you look at, you know, some of those linebackers, I think like Nicholas Morrow, who's probably going to get released. So, I mean, it's no really big names, nothing really too crazy like that for the Eagles. I know they're trying to work on an extension for Devontae Smith, which I 100% agree they should get done. He's, you know, one of, if not the best number 2 in the game. Could arguably be a number 1, but alongside A.J. Brown, you know, that offense, that receiving core, that duo is one of the best in the league. So I think they definitely want to keep that going, but it's the same. I know the Browns don't really have any first-round draft picks or anything like that, so not much going on there. But I know for the Eagles, it's the same old, looking in the trenches. With Kelsey retiring, we touched on it. You know, a lot of top 30 interviews with interior offensive linemen. They're going to look at the D-line, and then I believe also with Cooper DeJean. So, you know, that secondary was an issue. Bring in a young athlete like that who could kind of play anywhere in the secondary. You can play him in a nickel. Played outside at Iowa. Looks to continue to, you know, have the profile to continue to play outside at the next level, and then could even slot back to safety. So someone like that, Swiss Army knife, would definitely help that defense in the secondary as well. So I think, you know, don't look for them to be big spenders in free agency. Maybe they'll probably bring in a running back on, a little veteran minimum deal like they always do. But in the draft, I think it's going to be what it always is: defensive line, offensive line, and then maybe they look to adjust the secondary. I think that's going to be the keys. Howie Roseman likes to build in the trenches. They like to hit those, high value positions. Linebacker play was not good at all, but I doubt it's addressed, big time. Although your boy Van Ginkel was the name that's been getting a lot of buzz up in Philly, with Fangio coming over from Miami, had some success last season in that system. So that's a name.
Probably one of his best seasons too. So.
Exactly, yeah. So Fangio, if you liked him, like how he played last year, keeping him in that system. So, I mean, we know what the Eagles are at this point. They'll scrap around, some safeties, some linebackers, maybe a receiver or two in the late round, maybe a free agent receiver to be number 3 guy. Throw a running back on a vet minimum, and then they continue to address all their high value assets at the those high value positions. So that's pretty much it for the Eagles offseason so far. Nothing really crazy. It's just looking to shape out as a regular Eagles offseason.
Yeah, and I mean the Dolphins gonna be interesting to see. Have to go more in depth after today. The cutting of Jerome Baker might be going to look at a linebacker and whatnot. But I look, the Browns somehow have 8 picks. Obviously not a first rounder. They got 2 sixth, maybe 2 fifth, something like that. But yeah, we'll see what they address. They could get a receiver in the draft. I mean, they've done that in years past, and literally none of the receivers have worked out. And there's David Bell,
Anthony Schwartz.
And yeah, that was a late round pick they used though.
Yeah.
I'm trying to, man, I can't even think of the wide receiver they drafted last year. But big body receiver, I can't even think of it. It's just gonna be interesting to see what they do. Cedric Tillman, there we go. Really didn't see much from him either, so we'll see if they decide to go another wide receiver. Hasn't hit yet. We'll see. They need some other help, maybe offensive line. We'll see. Who knows with them. Nonetheless, man, you got any other NFL topics, anything like that?
I pretty much covered everything so far.
NBA news, man. I mean, coming out of Miami, obviously being a Heat fan, signing Patty Mills. I really like this deal, man. Former Heat killer. He knows what he's about, man. He's torched the Heat back in the day on the Spurs. Good shooters, floor spacing point guard. Can handle the ball, obviously. Veteran leadership. Kind of what they had in Kyle Lowry. Now you get it in Patty Mills. He's able to come off the bench. I really like it. They were thin at guard all offseason. Even the start of the season, it was, point guard. They get Terry Rozier in the trade. Now you add Patty Mills. Add that depth that they really desperately needed. Ball handlers and floor generals. Patty Mills adds that floor spacing. He's able to knock down the shot. I think it's a really good pickup for the Heat, and it could, come playoff time, really be one that could work out. We'll see what Patty's got left in the tank right now, so should be interesting. He's going to get conditioned. You said Heat culture, get him in shape, get him right. So we'll see what the days that come with Patty Mills, but I really like that pickup as a Heat fan.
Yeah, and especially with the injuries right now, I think he'll slide in and kind of give the Heat a little stability because, all their guards are out, right?
Yeah, I mean, J. Rich dealing with it. Rozier's back. He got banged up. I mean,
Hero's banged up.
Hero's getting banged up. Drew Smith, he's out for the season. Their two-way that they had brought up. They signed DeLon Wright. He's more like a forward.
Yeah, so just more guard depth.
Yeah, and that's something they needed, man. I like it. Sleepy Pat doing something right over there in Miami right now. So hopefully they could get over that hump. We'll see this season with the Heat. And the East kind of so wide open after the Celtics. I mean, you got the Bucks, question marks surrounding them. It's starting to look like Dame's getting on the same page with Giannis. You got the Knicks. Jalen Brunson, we just saw avoided that major ankle injury. who else? You got the Cavs. They're sort of, we talked about it, in limbo. And I called it last week. Who's going to be that late game closer at that 2-guard position for the Cavs? And Strus literally went dumb that night. That's when he went crazy in the fourth quarter. Didn't miss a shot. Hit that game winner from, what was it, like 3 quarters deep?
Yeah, that was insane.
Whatever it was, but
the Sixers without Embiid, they're kind of falling.
Yeah, Sixers without Embiid, that's tough. I mean, you might as well. It's just a Tyrese Maxey trying to go off every given night. So the East is really wide open after the Celtics. Celtics look like they're clicking on all cylinders. I saw someone compare them to the 86 Celtics. Don't know if we're there yet. Haven't seen Tatum and Brown be able to come over that hump. We'll see with those two guys, but this is the best season the Celtics are having. And after them, I mean, a lot of question marks going on in the East. You had the Bucks get bounced in the first round last year. You got their, uncertainty up right now. Doc Rivers, head coach. I mean, this is the year the East is just wide open right now. And the West is just as competitive as ever at this point in the season.
Yeah, I think the West is a lot more competitive. So when you look at the East, it's kind of like you mentioned the Celtics or who else, but I think the West is where it gets really, really interesting. You have, the Timberwolves have been playing really well. Defensive team, like we touched on last week. Lakers and the Warriors trying to make a little noise. Although the Warriors, after getting blown out by the Celtics, doesn't look too good. But Lakers with a big win over the Thunder last night. D'Angelo Russell caught fire, but even that Thunder's team super competitive. Clippers look like they came back down to earth a little bit, but they're still a super competitive team. They're really good. Kings, they're going to be in the mix offensively. Don't know how much else, what they really offer with how competitive the West is right now. But yeah, I think those top teams, when you look at, the Clippers, when you look at the Nuggets, when you look at, the Timberwolves and their defense, and Anthony Edwards is able to elevate his game. I think those are right now the scariest teams, not even just in the West, but in the league.
Yeah. So, classic. Taking a look at the NBA power rankings. Do you want to guess last week's biggest plus minuses and lowest plus minuses? Want to take another guess?
For individual players, right?
Yeah. So we got right way and wrong way.
The best was it like Jaylen Brown, Tatum,
someone on the Celtics.
Holiday.
Nope.
Derek White.
Derek White was the right way with a plus 88 in 3 games last week. So he's on the court. The Celtics were up big.
Yeah, the Celtics were like just.
I mean, they were just killing opponents. So plus teams, minus. Yeah. I mean, everybody was.
I had a feeling it was gonna be somebody
on the Celtics. Hey,
the worst.
Worst Eastern Conference team. They're sort of just maybe a team you don't like because they're sitting one of your guys in the East. Shut a player down for the season.
Who, the Hawks? I mean, not. Is it the Hawks?
No, it's the Hornets.
Hornets? Oh, they shut LaMelo down? So.
Yeah. Minus 78 in 4 games last week.
Not Grant Williams. He's been all right.
So it's another forward.
Who are the forwards on the Hornets, bro? I don't even know. Like, is it Micic? He just got over there from OKC. I don't think it's him.
Miles Bridges.
Oh, Miles Bridges. Well, yeah, that's cool. I guess, bro.
Biggest jumps of the week: Miami +5 into the power rankings. Denver +3. Milwaukee +3. San Antonio +3. Indiana dropped 6 spots, so they went down big time.
Halliburton's been on a little cold streak.
They definitely have. Celtics still stay 1. Nuggets, they jump up to that 2 from the 5. Thunder 3. Clips 4, and then you got the T-Wolves who dropped to 5 in Milwaukee. They're also trending in the right direction. They're at 6. Let's see what. Got the Heat at the number 8 power ranked team right now, and after last week being 13th, they saw second half Jimmy. They decided to wake up a little bit, saw what he was talking about. They're back on track. I really can't complain with these power rankings from what I've seen. All stacking up pretty well. I do think they finally give that respect to the Nuggets after, last week when they were 5 when we talked about it, maybe being overlooked. Well, I don't think they're overlooked too much further at this point in the season. But that's going to wrap up the power rankings. You got any NBA topics, takes, anything like that?
I'm trying to think. No, it's pretty much the same since we talked last week. Didn't really miss much else.
Yup. It's going to wrap up. Just taking a look at these scores. Heat up 4 on the Pistons in a second. Going to have to tune into that. And we'll see. Better not lose to the Pistons. Don't want to be that team. Shout out Kuz. Oh, Jordan Poolboy, man. Coming off the bench.
Yeah, he's been playing
True
better.
6-man, man. He went 8 for 8, 5 for 5 from 3. He was just chucking up ridiculous shots looking for the and one and hitting them. So when it's falling for that dude, it's really falling. But Go, episode 80, man. Spotify, Apple, everything like that. TikTok, Go Pod. YouTube, Go. Check it out, like, comment, share. And until next week, man, we'll be back with another episode. Peace.